Gavana Milan. So in this video I'm going to tell you all about my Elven Awakening. I thought that it was really great in the book that I just read, The Elves from Ancient Times to Modern Times. It was really great that he explained the idea behind the Elven Awakening, and it's that moment in time where you just figure out, you're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't just love the elves, I am an elf, or I carry some kind of elven soul within me. So I wanted to go through my childhood and give you an indication of when I had my first Elven Awakening, and then maybe you can figure out your own Elven Awakening, and that might help you to figure out if you too are an elf. So, start with the very beginning. And this is one of the books that I grew up with. My family always had these types of books all about fairies and elves and, just magic and all these things in our house. And I learned so much as a young child about the Fae world. And I love that book so much. And I truly felt that I was part of their world whenever my mother or my father would read me these stories. I just felt like I was part of their world, and I didn't really know how to explain it. And I just realized that when I first saw Lord of the Rings, when it first came to the theaters, I'm a very visual person. So I read The Hobbit, I read all those books as a young child, and I always loved nature. I loved being outside all the time. I loved looking for injured animals or animals that needed help. I always brought home like all these homeless animals and animals that needed care and tending to into the house. And I would just run around like the cemetery area or the area where we had this huge like forest kind of attached to a cemetery where I grew up. And I would always go deep into the woods, and I would build a tree house with my friends, and I would just stay there. And my parents would always yell at me because I always came home way too late, and I just never really paid attention to the time when I was outside. So I think my dad always had an indication that I had this kind of nature spirit within me. And so when I saw The Lord of the Rings, I saw Jackson's vision of the elves. That was kind of my moment of awakening. I felt that I was part of their community. I just felt like those were my people. And I had like stars in my eyes watching them. And I'll never forget this. My father and my stepmother, they bought me a Legolas doll, and I never even asked for it. I didn't even say anything about the elves, but I think they just knew that I always had just this love for them, and they could just tell. And of course, I think my dad knew me so well that he knew that I wanted to be in Rivendell. Like, I wanted to actually live in Lothlorien. I wanted to be with those elves. So my father knew that, and he bought me that doll. And I think it was that moment when I had my Elven Awakening. I just knew. I was like, I have this elven soul. This is who I really am. This is why I am a certain way, and this is why I love nature, and I have a natural wisdom about it. And I guess that was my first awakening. And I think Peter Jackson really helped bring J.R.R. Tolkien's words to life, because of course, as I read his books, I felt I was, merging with the story, and I felt that I was part of the elven people. But then visually when I saw the vision of Peter Jackson come to life and bring J.R.R. Tolkien's words into vision, for me that was like a moment of awakening. And I believe that after that, I just always had it in my mind. I was like, if I could trade my human life to live in the forest and be with the elves, I would. And then what ended up happening was actually the beginning of, I want to say, last year, I started to get in touch with my higher ascended masters and guides. And I talked about this in my other video. They are a part of you. Your higher guides are basically your higher soul that is leading you onto the path best for you and to help in your soul evolution and your growth. And I met my three different types of guides. And Sarah Wiseman has this really wonderful meditation course. I paid like $10 for it. It was just incredible. And it was me walking up the ladder of my consciousness outside of the material plane into the spiritual plane, and then having the different guides actually come in alignment with me. And I met my earth guide, my spiritual guide, and I think my soul guide. I think that's what it was. And there are different types of guides that do different things for you and say different things, and are part of different aspects of yourself. And it was just incredible because I finally put two and two together when in front of me, when you ask your earth guide to step forward so you can identify them. That was when my elven guide stepped in front of me, and was an elven woman, and iridescent and just kind of see-through and glowing with all sorts of lights and colors. And I knew right there after the elven guide stepped in front of me and told me, I am here to help you bring healing to the earth, and to help awaken the voice of the elves. And immediately I was just like, wow, I mean, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I want to help with. I have other missions, and my other guides are part of that, but then also this particular one about the earth, because I've always been someone so concerned about the earth. I mean, I've never believed any of the idea that there's no such thing as climate change and global warming. There is, and it all reflects on what the humans are actually doing. And I've always been really concerned with recycling, and I've tried to start recycling projects and programs within the schools I worked in. So, I mean, I always had an earth conscientious state of mind, but finally my elven guide gave me more guidance. And after I met my earth guide, that's when I started this Facebook group all of a sudden. And I just created it. You can go on Facebook and anybody can create a group, and I just typed it all in, and I knew a lot of people that were kind of vibing with me and cared about the earth and had that kind of earthly spirit to them. So I invited them to the group, and there you go. And it was just instant. I was just so excited because there was so much information on the internet. There's so many beautiful pictures. There's ways to merge your consciousness by sharing pictures of elves, by sharing pictures of elven decor and living style and the homes, fantasy and not fantasy, and then also sharing the wisdom that Tolkien provided from the elves, and also just having a knowledge about what type of wisdom the elves have, and then searching through all the history of mankind and understanding like the different types of teachers and spiritual guides that we had that elven type of wisdom about the earth. Rumi is a huge one, and as a Sufi, I always knew that Rumi was very close and connected to nature, and that was what he did for Islam. He actually brought the nature wisdom into Islam. It was a beautiful thing because unfortunately sometimes religion just doesn't incorporate that side of things, and Rumi was that, and that's why I follow Rumi. Rumi is my spiritual guide. And if you ever read Rumi's poems and you read his quotes and his sayings about nature, I think you will understand why. So I absolutely love Rumi and all these different spiritual people that have always been so connected to nature at the same time of spirituality. It just all clicked. So I started this group, and then I started making videos on Facebook. Like, you can actually make videos within your group, and I started making all these videos about different aspects of the elf and different ways that elves carry themselves and the mannerisms that elves have and the wisdom behind their personalities and the wisdom that they have with nature. I started making all these videos, and then it just one day clicked. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make another channel because I have another one that is trying to help Muslims, young Muslims right now, kind of awaken into a newer wisdom or a higher awakening in a sense than what organized religion is teaching them. And I was like, I'm going to make another channel, and this is going to be me not identifying myself as a particular mission for this particular religion, but actually this is for everyone. This is for anybody who loves nature, anybody who has felt the call of the elves and has had an elven awakening. And it was a way to kind of gather people together. So that is really my journey into my elven awakening, and here I am. And as I have been making these videos and I have been putting myself out there more and more as an elf, it's true, like, you know, the more and more you focus on something, the more you do become. And as I have awakened more into my elven self, I become more calmer, more reserved, a little bit more detached from things, not so emotional, which is a good thing for me because I used to be a very emotional person. I used to get very hurt easily as an empath. But now I have this more of a balance within me, and I want to bring that to everybody because when you enter into elven consciousness, it is that higher state of awareness of yourself and of others. And it allows you to move smoothly through your life and to really handle anything that comes your way. So it's really exciting. I do believe that many humans are awakening into this, as that book talked about. And I believe that it's happening for a reason. It is. It's part of this movement to help bring Earth back into balance, as far as the way people treat Earth and are connected to nature. And I think a lot of people are awakening into this, and you know, they love to dress up like elves, they love to take pictures, they love to, you know, have themselves look like elves, but now it's about acting like elves and actually having the wisdom and the consciousness of the elves. That's really the next stage to our evolution as humans and on Earth as a Terran soul. Regardless if you are a starseed or not, this is the wonderful thing about, I think, the Elven path, is that even if you are a Palladian starseed, even if you're an Arcturian, Assyrian, whatever, if you're a starseed from another planet, you also can feel connected to the Elven path. It's about you carrying this ancient spirit within you that cares about the earth, that wants to give back to the earth all that it has given, and sees the issues that are going on and wants to be a voice for that. And not only just about the earth, but about how people relate to one another and how they treat one another. And so that's anybody. Anybody can relate to that, whether you're a starseed or an earth soul. It doesn't matter. Everybody can kind of come together on the Elven path. And that's why I had my awakening, I guess. And it's funny because I just told one of my subscribers that I am an introvert. I mean, you should see me. I don't like going to parties. I don't like to be around a lot of people. I do not like crowds of people. But here I am, putting my voice out here in front of the entire world. And that's because this elven energy within the world is helping to give me strength, helping to give me a voice in order to really awaken others to their elven self. So we are in some exciting times indeed. And I hope that with me sharing my story about my personal journey into my elven discovery or my elven soul awakening, I will help you also discover your own. And maybe there's a time when you can go back and look and say, you know, I always knew that I had an elven soul. And, you know, this is this is the time to realize it so that you too can become a voice for the elves. Because even if you're not making YouTube videos, you still are going through your daily life and you are interacting with others. And the way that you carry yourself and the way that you care about the earth and about nature will rub off on others. And I think that that's what we really need, is we need to have this conscious awareness of the earth and this awakening in others. So, Hannah and Leigh for watching, and I will see you on the next video.